Echoes of yesterday, trapped in today. Anna awoke to the familiar chime of her alarm clock. She reached over, silencing the persistent beeping, and stretched her arms wide. Another ordinary day in her life. She went through her morning routine with practiced ease, brushing her teeth, brewing a cup of coffee, and dressing for work. The sun shone brightly through the kitchen window as she prepared her breakfast. Stepping outside, she was greeted by her neighbor, Mrs. Carmichael, watering her garden as usual. "Good morning, Mrs. Carmichael," Anna called cheerily. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Carmichael replied with a warm smile. At the bus stop, the driver greeted her with a nod as she boarded. She found a seat next to a colleague from work, Susan, and they chatted about their weekend plans. The day at work was busy, filled with meetings, emails, and lunch with friends. She then spent some time at her best friend Bethany's house having a lovely dinner. By the time Anna got home, she was exhausted but content. The next morning, the alarm clock chimed again. Anna silenced it, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. She brushed it off, assuming it was just the monotony of her routine. Stepping outside, she greeted her neighbor, Mrs. Carmichael, watering her garden as usual. Anna waved and said, "Good morning, Mrs. Carmichael." But there was no response. The elderly woman continued her task, oblivious to Anna's presence. Shrugging it off as an odd occurrence, Anna walked to the bus stop. The bus arrived on time, and she boarded, nodding to the driver. The man didn't acknowledge her. Puzzled, she found a seat and settled in for the ride. At work, the same pattern emerged. Her colleagues went about their business, seemingly unaware of her existence. Anna tried to strike up conversations, but everyone ignored her. By the end of the day, frustration gnawed at her. She went home, hoping for a better tomorrow. This cycle repeated several more times. Anna began to grow frantic, shouting and waving her arms, desperate for someone to notice her distress. Mrs. Carmichael ignored her friendly greeting. Susan did not acknowledge her presence at work, and when Anna went to visit Bethany, her friend would not even acknowledge her knock on the door. It was as if she were a ghost, unseen and unheard. On the fifth day, she sat on a park bench, overwhelmed by despair. As she watched the world move around her, she noticed something peculiar. The same events played out with clockwork precision: a boy chasing a ball, a couple arguing, a dog barking at a squirrel. It was as if she were trapped in a loop. Anna's mind raced. Why was this happening? What had changed? As she sat there, a memory began to surface. It was late one night, and she had been driving home from Bethany's house. The roads were slick with rain, and visibility was poor. Suddenly, a car swerved into her lane. There was a blinding flash of light, the screech of tires, and then nothing. Anna gasped as the memory flooded back. The accident. She had been in an accident. Realization hit her like a tidal wave. She was in a coma, caught between life and death, reliving the same day over and over. Tears streamed down her face as she accepted the truth. "Why am I here?" she whispered to the empty air. "What do I need to do?" In the silence that followed, a sense of calm washed over her. She knew what she had to do. It was time to move on, to let go of this life and whatever was holding her back. Closing her eyes, Anna took a deep breath and whispered, "I'm ready." A warmth enveloped her, soothing her troubled mind. She felt herself being lifted, her spirit gently pulled away from the repetitive cycle of her phantom day. In that moment, she felt a profound peace, a release from the confusion and loneliness that had plagued her. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer in the park. Instead, she found herself in a tranquil, sunlit meadow, surrounded by wildflowers and the distant sound of a babbling brook. She saw familiar faces, loved ones who had passed on before her, welcoming her with open arms. Anna smiled, her heart light and free. She had made her choice. She was moving on, leaving the echoes of yesterday behind, and stepping into the light of eternity. Like and subscribe for more puzzling tales.